Thank you very much, Father Clifford, and thank you to the panelists and the keynote speakers. I'm very pleased to see so many people logging on, and the quality of the presentations has been excellent. I think the quality of the presentations has literally put all questions to rest because we have received none. That's a good sign, I think. But I, for myself, would like to ask Bishop Alleyne, if he is still here, if he could speak to a recent development which happened. The Dominica Court, the Commonwealth of Dominica, not Dominican Republic, is addressing the issue of decriminalization. Cases before the court, and the Bishop of Rousseau had said in 2013 that the church does not support criminalization. However, in papers filed on this Monday, the bishop seems to have taken a different position. I don't know if you're aware of that, what the bishop has said.
I'm not aware, sorry, yes.
Okay, all right. Well, I won't put you on the spot then, because it might not be appropriate for you to respond without
becoming aware.
That's good. Because I wanted to know if this was change, represented a change, and if so, what brought about this change, where the bishop was now in defense of the anti-sodomy law, when in 2013 he had said he opposed the anti-sodomy law. So that was an interesting development to me. And to Reverend Rock, I think you're still with us. I wonder if, Reverend Rock, you could share your perspective. You are now in the Virgin Islands. How are these issues addressed there, the issue of criminalization or LGBT human rights? How is the church viewing decriminalization or LGBT human rights in the Virgin Islands? I know you're speaking for Barbados, but we didn't have the opportunity to have the Virgin Islands represented on this conversation. And it is important to hear how colonies or overseas territories of Britain, how the churches in those jurisdictions address the issue of LGBT human rights, knowing that Britain has legalized and is in many instances pushing beyond legalization. What is your sense in that jurisdiction of how the church addresses LGBT human rights?
The position of the church over here primarily is the position of most of the evangelical churches across the Caribbean, in that they are against it. However, the situation is different from the point of view that the BVI is a territory, an overseas territory of the UK. And only a few months ago in the Cayman Islands, the governor there invoked a section of the Constitution to make sure that in the Cayman Islands, another British overseas territory, that the decriminalization would go ahead and that same-sex unions would be respected and observed legally. The fear over here now is that the time will soon come when, if the decision is not made locally by the House of Assembly, then the UK government, through its governor, will call in the Constitution and most likely mandate that, one, it be decriminalized, and two, that same-sex unions be respected. And that is at present the fear on the ground. The reality is that it is in keeping with the United Nations human rights mandates, and the fear is that the local churches cannot do anything about it.
Thank you very much, Reverend Rock. And I think my final question would be to Victor. Victor, once again, thank you for your excellent exposition. You hail from Costa Rica, which I am very proud to say, has a Jamaican vice president. But so does the United States, so you're catching up. I would like to know, in the context of Costa Rica, how have the churches addressed the issue? How have you seen the churches address the issue? Because you seem to have a very progressive legislative landscape, certainly. What's the sense of the churches, or do you have any knowledge of how the churches there treat the issue of LGBT human rights?
Thank you, Maurice. And of course, as I said, I'm delighted to be here and truly learning a lot. Of course, my views on this matter are not necessarily those of the mandate, because this is not an issue where I've done fact-finding as the independent expert. Nonetheless, I can share with you a couple of things that I think are relevant in this conversation. In Costa Rica, the great discussion is about the laicity of the state. As many of you will know, Costa Rica has a confessional constitution in which, different to many countries in Latin America, it is established that Catholicism is the official religion of the state. It means that Catholic denomination actually will receive a number of state-sponsored benefit and prerogatives that other denominations do not necessarily receive. And it also means that there is a certain bias towards mores determined by the Catholic Church in relation to this. Now, in the last 25, 30 years, there has been significant demographic change in the faith under which people identify, and that is particularly true of evangelical faith-based denominations. And that conversation, complex in and of itself from a political standpoint, has now been confronted with issues relating to the prevalence of the human rights of LGBT persons. Now, Costa Rica doesn't have criminalization since quite a long time ago, but still, there has been a number of use of legislation to persecute LGBT persons. This was determined by own admission of the president 2 years ago, where a report was issued on the criminalizing actions, utilizing legislation on public mores, good order, and vagrancy over the last 30 years. And I think they were able to create an inventory of some 300 or 400 persons still alive as of today, which had been victims of those actions of criminalizing actions. And so I think all of that has created a particular canvas, Maurice, but at the moment, what was the big game changer in Costa Rica, and it ought to be a big game changer at regional level, is advisory opinion C24 of the Inter-American Court of Human Rights, where, as you know, the court established the requirement of recognition of same-sex marriage as stemming from the American Convention on Human Rights. And within the whole applicable machinery and framework of the Inter-American human rights system, which, of course, as we know, is applicable fully in the Caribbean. And the legal construction in advisory opinion of C24 derives very much on a parallel way to the decriminalizing judgment of the Indian Supreme Court, the intimate, inextricable connection between the recognition of rights, in this case of protection of the family, and the right to found a family, with the idea of human dignity and freedom to self-identify on all aspects of human existence, including sexual orientation and gender identity. Advisory opinion of C24 also very strongly established and identified standards for legal recognition of gender identity, something that relates, I think, strongly to everything that Alexa was mentioning to us about the lived experience and everyday lives of trans persons. In that connection, the decision to recognize same-sex marriage in Costa Rica was essentially a quintessential application of laicity of human rights protections. And therefore, in that particular instance, it was not left to either, a referendum, because of course the government understood that it was already an advisory opinion that was established. It was not left to public opinion, and it was not left to the political and religious discussion. And I think in this connection, it bypassed that conversation in a matter of fact. Now, as a Costa Rican, my observation on this is that the social change that has been promoted by that decision is actually quite remarkable. I mean, people realize that the society has not fundamentally changed by the recognition of equal marriage. People realize that basically it has become a more, open, more accepting society, but, nothing has crumbled under this change, and the society has not gone, into the Caribbean Ocean, having been dismantled in all of its integrity. And I think that is important. I myself travel the country with my husband for 3 weeks, presenting him to people in shops and gas stations in all over the country as my husband, and I realized that there has been a fundamental shift in morals just by that recognition. And I find that incredibly valuable. So thank you, Maurice, for giving me the chance to speak as a Costa Rican rather than a mandate holder, and I hope that these remarks will be taken as such.
Thank you very much, Victor. And I think we have some other questions, but we're out of time, so we will pose those to the panelists, the individual panelists for whom the questions were intended during the break. So over to you, Father Clifford.
Yes, thank you, Maurice. We have a 10-minute break now, and afterwards we shall, the second panel will be Belize and Jamaica. And so I hope you'll all enjoy that little break, and that you've enjoyed our first session here this morning.